So several NFL rule changes could be coming to the NFL this season that some people like, while others don't really like at all. This could also affect both the regular season as well as the playoffs, so I've got to talk about that. The Aaron Rodgers saga may be potentially coming closer to an end, and much more right after. Alright, first up, with the annual league meeting taking place in a couple of weeks, end of March, there's some proposed rule and bylaw changes owners will be voting on during this time. Some of these proposed rule changes by certain teams seem pretty valid, while others are a bit more questionable / entertaining. It's worth noting that these proposals need to be approved by 24 of the 32 owners in order to pass, so there's a bit of an uphill climb for some of these to begin with. First, the Packers are proposing a rule to effectively ban the tush push, or to put it in fancy legal terms, they are proposing a rule that would prohibit an offensive player from pushing a teammate who was lined up directly behind the snapper and receives a snap immediately at the snap. This is not the first time we've seen teams try and get the tush push banned, and I don't think it's going to be the last. The Packers literally started their season out with a loss to the Eagles, then had their season end on a loss to them in the wild card round, so I can understand why they're sick and tired of seeing that play. Part of their reasoning behind it is injuries, but I think there's been plenty of valid data that supports injuries not really happening on that play. So I think it is most likely here to stay. And then this is my personal favorite, but the Lions proposed that the NFL eliminate teams getting an automatic first down as a result of a defensive holding or illegal contact penalty. I kind of understand the reasoning behind that, because that normally happens within the first 5 yards of the line of scrimmage. So why would a 2nd and 25 suddenly turn into a 1st and 10? I get it, but I'm sure the Lions would really love that to be changed, considering they've led the NFL in defensive holding and illegal contact penalties over the past 2 seasons. So they would benefit from this rule change more than anybody else, and it isn't even close. This would really help them in their division as well, because while they were first, the Packers were 15th in such penalties. Meanwhile, the Bears were 30th and the Vikings were 32nd. Then the Eagles are proposing that the NFL adopts the postseason overtime rules for the regular season as well, as it is currently. If the team who begins overtime scores a touchdown on their opening possession, then the game is over and that team wins. That's obviously a change that's been in place for a couple of years, because it used to be if a team kicks a field goal, they win. Now it has to be a touchdown on the first possession and it's over. However, in the postseason, even if the opening drive results in a touchdown, the other team gets an opportunity to match it. Honestly, this seems like a no-brainer move, and I'm a little surprised that it's taken us this long to even get here. It's also worth noting that overtime would also go from 10 minutes in the regular season to a full 15. In the playoffs, overtime is 15 minutes, but it also is as long as it takes for a team to win given the rules. But obviously, in the regular season, the game could end in a tie. Well, now they would have 15 minutes to get something done instead of 10. Anyway, this seems like the most likely proposal to pass of the ones I just mentioned. So those were the 3 rule change proposals, but the Steelers offered a resolution proposal around the 2-day negotiation period before the start of the new league year. This change would allow teams to have direct contact with free agents and even set up travel during this 2-day negotiating window rather than just being allowed to speak to their agents. This would allow them to get a better grasp on players they are interested in signing before the league year begins, and right now, no traveling can be done by players until that day. Next up, the Lions actually submitted a couple of bylaw proposals on top of all of that. This first one is to change the current playoff seeding format to allow wildcard teams to be seeded higher than division champions if they have a better regular season record. As it currently stands, the 4 division winners claim the top 4 seeds and first-round home field advantage for their respective conferences. For example, last year, the Vikings finished the regular season 14-3, but finished as the 5th seed because Detroit ended up winning their division. Well, had this rule been in place, Minnesota would have been the 3 seed and had at least 1 home playoff game. And that's just one example. Honestly, both brackets would have looked different had this been a thing last year, but it is important to note that all the playoff teams would have remained the same, even if this rule was in place, and it just would have looked slightly different from a bracket standpoint. Now, opinions seem a bit split on this one. Some say this would kind of make divisions pointless, so if you're going to employ this change, do away with divisions altogether. But to me, part of what's fun about the NFL is division rivals and playing them twice a year. Then obviously, if you win the division, you get a spot in the playoffs, and that's why these division games are so important. Others say, no. Even with this rule change, don't do away with divisions, but it is dumb that a team that could end up with a record around 500, below 500, could still automatically get home field advantage in the playoffs just because their division sucks. But what do you guys think? Does this seem like a reasonable idea or nah? Let me know either way in the comments down below. And before we move on to talk about the latest update in the Aaron Rodgers saga, the Lions actually proposed one more bylaw. This would allow teams that have players who get injured during the preseason to get placed on IR, yet their spot on the roster could get backfilled. And then we have a bit of an update on the Aaron Rodgers situation. On Monday, Ian Rappaport said that he wouldn't be surprised to see this whole thing get dragged out all the way until the draft, which is in over a month from now. Crazy. Multiple reports have stated that Rodgers is in no rush to make a decision right now, which, yeah, I think we kind of picked up on that already. So while we may not know who Rodgers will be suiting up for anytime soon, we know who he most likely will not be playing for, and that is the Minnesota Vikings. Tom Pelissero reported this morning that the Vikings have rejected multiple trade offers for J.J. McCarthy, telling other teams that they're moving forward with him as their franchise quarterback. He went on to say that the Vikings do plan on adding a veteran quarterback, but they're not pursuing Aaron Rodgers at this time. So there you go. All the rumors of Rodgers to Minnesota have officially been shut down, at least for the most part. I mean, most of those reports were Aaron Rodgers would like to play for the Vikings. The question was, do the Vikings actually want Rodgers? Well, Diana Rossini of The Athletic is really the main insider who's been putting out a lot of the info on Rodgers and the Vikings. And after this came out from Pelissero about Minnesota not being interested in Rodgers, she didn't seem to fully put that one to bed. She said that the Vikings have strongly considered and will continue to monitor Aaron Rodgers as an option, but they're not ready to commit at this point in the offseason, and they understand this could lead him to signing elsewhere or retiring. She then said, JJ Spring will be the key. Well, yeah, he had that season-ending knee injury, so how does he bounce back from that, and how does he look? In theory, they'll monitor his knee during that time, and if there's any question marks around it, maybe then Aaron Rodgers could be a more serious option if he hasn't already made a decision by then. But they are not bothered if he does decide during that time. Pelissero said they will continue to explore options for a veteran quarterback addition, though, whether through free agency or a trade. Who that actually ends up being, I'll be ever so curious. And that leaves Rodgers' options narrowed down to Pittsburgh or the New York Giants, and in multiple recent videos, I broke down why the Steelers are the option that makes the most sense here. However, here's something: the Steelers have the 21st pick in the draft, and whether it's there or a tad later, what if they took a bit of a flyer on Jalen Milroe? Regardless of Aaron Rodgers or not, this could be a potential swing at the future. Mike Tomlin was at Milroe's pro day, after all, at Alabama, and actually had dinner with him, so he could be a name to keep watch on. A lot of draft experts have him listed as the 4th or even 5th best QB in this class, for what it's worth, but his stock could be on the rise after what we saw from him today. According to Alabama's unofficial time, Milroe ran a 4.3740, which is very fast for a quarterback. Some other scouts had him clocked around the mid 4.4s, but that is still cruising. The fastest 40 time we've ever seen from a quarterback was from none other than Michael Vick, who clocked a ridiculous 4.33 at the combine back in 2001. And while I realize 40 times have very little to do with quarterback success in the NFL, I mean, look at Tom Brady. That dude is slow as hell. Milroe is at least an interesting prospect because of his raw athleticism. Anyway, now that the Vikings are out of the mix, if Rodgers doesn't end up retiring, the Steelers seem the most likely landing spot. That would mean New York would be wise to either sign Jameis Winston or Russell Wilson, and we can be done with the what-ifs of Aaron Rodgers. New York would have their QB for now, yet could also maybe draft one depending on how that goes, and then it's just the Steelers with the question mark at that position. Be sure of this, I'll definitely let you know either way what ends up happening. And before I get out of here, I did want to mention that Netflix is releasing a quarterback season 2 featuring, once again, Kirk Cousins, which will be interesting considering he was playing for the Falcons last year, and then Joe Burrow. Very interesting considering their offense went nuclear, but their defense sucked. And then the last quarterback featured is going to be Jared Goff. Again, another very exciting offense with the Lions. This all took place, all the filming, all of it last season, and is going to be releasing this summer. So let me know your thoughts on quarterback season 2, and if you are going to watch it, you excited for it? Is it going to suck? I don't know. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, and with that, I'll see y'all next time.